This project is part of Dreamtime Creative's Forgotten Women of Wakefield campaign for Blue Plaque parity, which aims to honour as many women as there are currently men on blue plaques for their contribution to the social, political, cultural and economic landscape of our city. Dreamtime Creatives tells their stories through creative community engagements, including drama, writing, art, craft, theatre crafting and film. To date, we have named 18 women on blue plaques, with Anne Hurst being our 16th in this particular series. But with over 30 blue plaques dedicated to men and more men mentioned on blue plaques for buildings, we have a long way to go. But in partnership with Wakefield Civic Society, we know this will be achievable in the very near future and will only add value to our city and the cultural renaissance that is currently happening all around us. No more so than here in Upper Westgate, where Dreamtime Creative is based at Westgate Studios. Telling the story of one particular woman, Anne Hurst, who shaped the city and the history of our city, is part of the Heritage Action Zone project.
I'm very pleased that a blue plaque is being awarded to Anne Hurst. And this blue plaque event is part of a much larger community engagement programme for the Westgate Heritage Action Zone project, funded by Wakefield Council and Heritage England, which will see over £3.9 million being invested to renovate historic buildings along the Upper Westgate part of Wakefield over the next 3 years. Preserving Georgian and Victorian buildings is important for the future, but at the same time we must not forget the people who lived and worked here, because they did so much for our city. That's why it's great to be working with Wakefield Civic Society, Dreamtime Creative and other partners to highlight the work of Anne and other people over time that made such a dramatic impact on our great city and made a wonderful contribution to this particular area.
Funding for this incredible project, Visionary Women of Westgate, has come from Wakefield Council and Historic England. However, parallel funding has come from the Arts Council for the project Am I Not a Woman and a Sister? And this is enabling us to explore more deeply issues around black women and slavery, and to preserve the stories of our women in a short film called The Abolitionists. It is this funding that has enabled us to work with a diverse set of writers and artists to recreate the reimagined 1825 newspaper front page we believe Anne Hurst may have printed when she nailed her colours to the mast and launched an alternative publication, In Truth and Soberness, dedicated to the women's role in the anti-slavery movement here in Wakefield.
The Words of Truth and Soberness, a new publication by Wakefield Anti-Slavery Society, a declaration by the women of this town. We, the women of this town of Wakefield and members of the newly formed Wakefield Auxiliary Society for the Abolition of Slavery, call upon all of an enlightened mind and conscience to challenge the great mass of ignorance, bigotry and prejudice that is arrayed against this truly repugnant practice. We pledge a monthly publication to be distributed as extensively as possible in order to achieve this. The publication, The Words of Truth and Soberness, will contain useful and interesting information and give notice of various actions by ladies across the land.
All hearts are darkened by the weakness of men. How easily they break and they bend. Fearing the same watery fate, they're ordered to torture, abuse, and to hate. Fearing their shame, their lack of control, themselves barely fed, or war thwarted at all. Dealing in flesh is not what they do, but do it they will or be lashed again too. Captains dictate, the orders are bold, women with child before they are sold. Sailors conflicted and seduced by dimes, they swear to their makers this is the last time. Slavers in charge have no time to care, they answer to prophets and masters not there. This trade is by far the cruelest they'll see, their thoughts all consuming, thank God it's not me. Bodies move out, their souls now diminished, they plead and they beg for this evil to finish. Babies are taken and lovers torn apart, just business they say, but no man should be bought. The ones who survive will suffer henceforth unspeakable torture, and death is in force. Those who perished on the ships had small mercy at play. Let us not leave our legacy tainted this way.
I am compelled by duty and honour to bring matters to the public which are in the vested interests of the community. I will never shy away from my obligation to speak out against injustices or inequality, and you should all know me well enough by now to believe this my true opinion. What I have achieved, despite my lack of influence at the polls, has been through sheer determination, and I feel it most appropriate to demonstrate to my sons that a woman can achieve just as much as a man, if not more, when given the opportunity and the means, and therefore should not be treated any less favourably. I have grieved the loss of 2 daughters, but I cannot begin to put myself in the place of a slave mother who has her children torn from her to be sold like cattle in a market. Imagine a poor young girl taken from her home, her family and friends, not even able to convey her fears. The very thought that this is occurring in the world is sickening, which is why you will see it dominate my most recent publications of the Wakefield and Halifax Journal. No more can we idly stand by and let such grievous dealings continue. It is without doubt one of the greatest injustices of our modern age.
Hello, my name's Kevin Trickett and I'm President of Wakefield Civic Society. Before we unveil today's Blue Plaque, I'd like to say a little bit about the Society's Blue Plaque scheme. We inaugurated this back in 1995 with our very first Blue Plaques, and we've been going ever since. Today, some 26 years later, we're about to unveil the 65th Blue Plaque in that series. But today's Blue Plaque to Anne Hurst is also the 14th in our partnership with Dreamtime Creative, where we set out to record the lives and histories of some of Wakefield's forgotten women. The ultimate aim is to achieve Blue Plaque parity, where we have the same number of Blue Plaques in the city to women as we do to men. And in total, today's plaque will bring that number to 19 for women, but with over 30 to men, we're still about 2/3 of the way through the project and a little bit further to go before we achieve Blue Plaque parity. Today's plaque has been made possible via funding from Wakefield Council and Historic England, and it's the first one in our Westgate Historic Action Zone project, a project which is much bigger than just our blue plaques, and it's one where the Council and Historic England are working with property owners to improve some of the buildings and the public realm in the Upper Westgate Conservation Area, and we're hoping to put up a number of blue plaques in and around the area, as well as refurbishing some of the older ones which are looking a little bit tired with the funding that's been made available. I'd also like to say thank you to NatWest Bank, because today's blue plaque will eventually end up at number 56 Westgate, which was originally Anne Hurst's offices, so there's the link, but today is premises of NatWest Wakefield branch. So thank you very much to NatWest for giving permission for us to put the plaque on their building. Well, that's enough from me. I'm going to pass you on now to others to tell you the story of Anne Hurst. So thank you for listening. Bye for now.
I'd like to tell you about Anne Hurst. By the time her husband, Roland Hurst, had died in 1823, Anne was already established at the heart of Wakefield, here in Westgate, as a bookseller, stationer, patent medicine vendor, and tea dealer. In her bookshop, she was able to sell tinctures and herbal medicines, no doubt handed down through the female line, to offer relief for those unable to afford the prices of private doctors. Her books and pamphlets printed by her were already spreading information in support of the abolitionist and suffrage cause, and letting people know where the next meeting, the next protest, and the next discussion group was being held. Whilst Wakefield folk were buying their tea, Anne was able to link them to the literary society, the artists' community, and dissenters in the town, and to Westgate Unitarian Chapel, which was already a hub for revolution. The seeds of political change started way before 1832, when Wakefield voted Liberal MP Daniel Gaskell in on the abolitionist platform, and it started with Anne. Once Anne had inherited the keys to the printing press of the Wakefield and Halifax Journal on the death of her husband, she quickly used her extensive network to disseminate her radical, liberal, anti-slavery and suffrage through various papers across the north, established, owned and run by her. Aided by fellow Unitarian editors Naylor and Johnson, she was relentless in her efforts to persuade the male electorate to move away from the Tory right to the Liberal left. Extensively researched by Dreamtime Creative's lead researcher Helga Fox, Anne's name has been found and praised in press around the British Isles for the promotion of the abolitionist cause. Less than 12 months after becoming the owner of the Wakefield and Halifax Journal, she was raising a petition to send to Parliament. She was actively raising funds for the poor of the town who needed help from Wakefield's first hospital, the House of Recovery, which was actually set up and run by women. And she was promoting the need for a Wakefield dispensary, once again putting suffering, inequality and exploitation facing the poor front and centre. In 1830, Anne firmly nailed her anti-slavery colours to the mast and directly influenced the hearts and minds of the people of Wakefield by showing herself to be at the forefront of the movement when she, through her considerable social and political influence, intellect and ability to act, by printing a leaflet calling to the people of the town to attend an abolition of colonial slavery meeting at the courthouse. There are no women listed on the flyer, despite their integral role in the movement. Perhaps William Wilberforce's direct actions blocking support for the fairer sex and his vocal disdain of the role of women in the anti-slavery movement had been heeded, which is why Anne's name does not appear on the main list. Anne, however, clearly has other ideas. She is there, assumed until now to be the name of her husband, Roland Hurst. The footnote on the flyer reads, Hurst, Printer, Journal Office, Wakefield. It was this meeting that led to the explosive action by the Liberal movement in Wakefield and which resulted in Daniel Gaskell being elected. Without Anne and her paper, the Wakefield and Halifax Journal, Wakefield would not have played such an integral role in the abolition of slavery.
It's fantastic that on International Women's Day we are recognising the achievements of Anne Hurst. Anne was an anti-slavery campaigner in the 19th century Wakefield, who as a newspaper owner championed the rights of others at a time when it's incredibly difficult for women to do this. I'm very proud by awarding her a blue plaque we can give a voice to this remarkable woman who deserves to be better known for the immense contribution she made to our district. This has been made possible thanks to a tremendous project backed by ourselves and Historic England. The Am I Not a Woman and a Sister project is part of the visionary Westcott Women and Forgotten Women of Wakefield campaign and aims to achieve blue plaque parity in Wakefield by 2028 by researching the lives of notable women. I'm so pleased that today we can all celebrate and mark the life of Anne Hurst, a truly remarkable woman from our district.
Dreamtime Creative, as the powerhouse behind the Forgotten Women of Wakefield project, is delighted that Anne's strong moral compass was able to shine such a strong light in the darkest of times. We are so proud to be able to unveil a blue plaque in her honour to her today.